The first thing I knew I needed to do was not go into my fear, not go into stress, because I knew that would compromise any healing that would be possible. And so I did everything to reduce my stress. What were they? And many of them were unconventional. Just, well, what if?
Cue music. Places, everybody, places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Sayler. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Now, we don't want you to worry about taking too many notes, so you can join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club, and we'll send you the transcripts and show notes from every episode. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Sayler.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com, and on this episode, we have a return guest. I'm so excited because her show was awesome the last time we had her on, and I said, Sondra, you got to come back. So tonight we have Dr. Sondra Barrett, and she calls herself a recovering scientist. I love the title, but actually it's so much more than that. Someone who's willing to just think, what if, I wonder beyond, and to me, I love her curiosity. She just, to me, is this bright beacon of curiosity, resonates with me. She has a Ph.D. in biochemistry, a post-doctoral fellowship in immunology, former faculty at the University of California Medicine School, and then she veered off the mainstream medical research to people carrying mind-body healing education. We could go on because she really goes into leading support groups for people with cancer, immune illness, heart disease, and bringing together what I like to say science and the art of science, and as she calls it, the sacred. So we're going to just have a wandering conversation, if that's okay with you, Sondra. Can we just have a wandering conversation through your lovely mind?
Well, a wandering conversation from our loving hearts, both of us.
There we go. There we go. Now, one of the things that I've been talking a lot of lately, because it's of interest to me, especially during this time of pandemic and things, was what I'm going to say, trust my gut. I know that sounds a little weird, but there would be times I would be doing something and all of a sudden I'd just get this inkling like, maybe not, maybe you should move on, or maybe not the best thing to do. And I'm not sure where that came from. But you are an expert in cells and understanding the body and all of that. Is there any truth to that? The trust your gut?
Well, there's many truths with it. I mean, years ago, trust your gut. I have gut feelings. What does that mean? Well, one level of it is we have a brain in our gut. I mean, that's fairly new understanding, which means we've got a lot of neurons in our gut. And so our neurons are responding to what we're feeling and thinking, sending signals up to the brain. And so those of us who are sensitive to information, I mean, there are a couple things about trusting your gut is like, when is it intuition, which is really important right now, this time of year? And is the intuition connected to the brain? I mean, that's a whole other conversation that you probably can have many people talk about it. So for me, the gut is, from the biological, I would say, if I'm getting gut feelings from the biological perspective, it could be like when I can use my own experience as an example. When I'm nervous, when I would be nervous before an exam or an interview or something like that, I would get diarrhea. Sorry, but that's what would happen. So that was really a gut response. That the neurons in the gut, the brain, the chemicals that are flowing through me from being afraid or being nervous, that's one kind of response. And I think what you're asking is trust your gut. Is really trust your intuition.
Yeah, I think so.
And where does that come from? I don't think it comes from our gut. It's our level of consciousness. And where is that? Even like, where is mind? Where is mind? It's not just the brain. There's the idea that there's mind in the cells. So I say right now is really important, because right now we're in the sign of the Zodiac, Pisces, which is the most intuitive, empathic, deep feeling of the 12 signs of the Zodiac. And tomorrow's new moon. So we may be feeling much more intuitive. What's my gut? What do I sense right now than we were a couple of weeks ago? Or next week, our energy will be really different. So, it's like looking at what's my intuition. And most of us don't want to trust our intuition.
Right. But I find it interesting. We'll trust other people's intuition. That's true.
Yes. Yeah. Why do we do that? Well, they're more expert at it, right?
I guess so. Well, that's maybe what we think.
Yeah. Or we don't trust ourselves yet.
Yeah.
We trust our knowing. How much of our knowing is about the wisdom or the fear or the beliefs that are running us? So it's, what kind of discernment do we have with what the information is that we're getting? It's a little out there, but.
No, I think it's fascinating. And that's what I love about you, Sondra. You're based in science, and yet you're still willing to have these really fantastic questions about what if, and I wonder beyond what can actually, at the moment, be solidified. Maybe is not the right word, but that's the word that comes to mind.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot more research these days, especially through noetic sciences out here in Petaluma, looking at the intuitions, the ESP, other kinds of energy that traditionally is not being measured. I mean, it's hard to measure. It's hard to measure our spiritual inclinations. If it's not physical, how do we know it's real?
Right. Well, I think we're having that question, at least early with the pandemic. People would say, but, I don't see it. I can't touch it. It's, whatever. It seemed to be like it's not a big deal because it's invisible to us. And gosh, that's where we kind of get our blinders on, I think, when we're just in that area of like, well, curiosity. Yeah. Now, I know one thing you've been delving into curiosity is all about nature and the elemental symbolic wisdom too. I want to learn more about that. That just had me intrigued when I heard you were teaching a class on that.
Yeah, I just finished teaching the elemental cell. I was trying to bring together the elements of the Zodiac, the elements of nature, and our cellular universe. I'm not sure how effective it was an adventure. And that's the direction I'm going. It feels really important for me to get much more into the metaphysical, the intuition, and to help people get to know their own knowing. I mean, so you're starting with basically asking the question, how do we know? Is it from our gut? Is it our brain? Is it real? So the elemental cell, do you want me to go into some of the background where that came from?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so this is, my kids would call it woo-woo.
I want to share with my community what I love about Sondra. As I said, her curiosity and comes from a solid science background, but willing to come from that place of I wonder. And as I went through my healing journey over these past 7 years, that having people in my world from the I wonder and curiosity helped my healing more than anything, because they opened my mind and my eyes to new ways of being instead of being stuck in a particular something that maybe I learned from childhood. So let's all just open our minds and let Sondra share with us what she's discovered now.
So as a scientist, I was using a microscope to be able to distinguish normal cells from human leukemia cells. I was really training my eye to discern differences between healthy and unhealthy cells through the microscope, which is kind of a subjective, but then you can really see big differences between a leukemia cell and a normal cell. So I started doing slideshows for kids with cancer in pediatric oncology of healthy cells and normal cells, unhealthy cells. And then I started photographing vitamins and minerals and hormones to the microscope and bringing that to the kids to show them some of the inner beauty. And basically, cells are invisible. So that's as unreal as the virus is for most people. And I was on my own healing mission, and I moved out to the coast, being told I could possibly die. And, so I needed to reprioritize my life. And the physician in town, you probably know Elson.
Yeah,
Elson
absolutely.
Knox?
Yeah, he's been
Okay.
on the show several times.
Okay.
Great.
So Elson, I had never done anything alternative with healing, and he was doing one of his first cleansing classes, and so I met him doing his first, his cleansing class, and he and his partner Bethany Argyle saw my photographs, and they said, "We want you to photograph minerals related to astrology," and it's like, what? No way! Astrology is not in my bailiwick of work. I'm still at the University of California, and it's like, no. But then I rethought it, and I said, well, to Elson, if you can get me the pure minerals, not cell salts, because the story was based on homeopathic cell salts. If you get me the pure minerals, I'll photograph the pure minerals because I can show them to kids. They're part of our body. And so when I photographed the 12 mineral salts related to the Zodiac, I see 4 shapes. And it's like, and as someone who is able to look at patterns through the microscope, it's like, what's this for? Is there a quality of 4 in astrology? And yeah, the 4 elements. Like, oh, okay. Big deal. Until I looked at what were the 4 shapes: square, round, curvy, and hexagons. Any sense of which element the shape would go to?
Curvy, water.
Yep.
Square. Circle, I'd say air. Maybe not.
Well, I think that's the old sacred geometry. But the curve, yeah. So all the minerals related to the water elements were curvy. All the minerals related to air signs were round. All the minerals related to, earth signs were round. Air signs were square. And all the fire elements were hexagons. And it blew my mind. I wouldn't talk about it, but I started looking at it to try to understand relationships between people. This is 40 years ago. And so I would I don't even know how I got their chart because we didn't have the internet. And I would see that some people, like I could see myself, I had no fire, but all the people I was attracting in my life had fire. So I began questioning, are we attracted to people who have our missing element or strengthen us elementally? And God, I wouldn't talk about it for decades. I mean, I just was curious, I've got this curiosity and just looked at it. And then in the past couple of years, first I started doing elemental guidance readings for people, doing their charts with the images and with the shapes. And I saw that people one, I was having to dive much deeper into my intuition, and also begin studying, Carl Jung about, the 4 personality types, and what did astrology say about these 4 different qualities of energy, and just really started building my own knowledge base of, well, what is a water person? Like today, it's a double water, sun and moon and Aries and Pisces. What are the qualities of a water person? What's their lens of going into life? How do we assess life? If we're a water person, we're probably much more emotional than an air person who is mental, intellectual. I mean, that's the quality of, a lot of air. I mean, we have all these qualities, but some of them dominate us. I'm a water person, so emotions have driven my life. Intuition, I would never trust. So intuition and emotion are part of the water. Earth is tangible in the here and now. Prove it to me. Realistic, physical. Hexagons, the spirit. And many, I keep on learning. Many traditions have the hexagon as a spiritual symbol. And it goes back. I mean, that was one of the things I learned when the last class I taught. Because one thing is, I was looking at, when I started thinking about these elements, looking at creation stories and what were creation myths. And in the old days, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have books. How did they asked that question, how did we get here? What are we made of? And they came up with, thousands of years ago, the idea of the elements. Oh, we're earth. No, we're air. We need air to breathe. No, we're water because we're born in water. No, we're fire. So if we look at the many myths, what was clear from the myths and was clear from physical reality, we couldn't have life until there was warmth, until there was fire.
Right.
And we don't have, it's as above, so below. We don't have life until we have 6-sided molecules. So life and fire are hexagons. Sugar is a hexagon. Some of the hormones are hexagons. Steroids are hexagons. Water, if we look at the frozen crystals of Emoto, water snowflakes are 6-sided. Some of them are hexagons. So you begin to see the same pattern in nature, visible nature, invisible nature, and in our intuitive sacred nature. So it took me into this other dimension that, now I'm creating a deck of cards of these images and doing, elemental guidance readings. And I'm no longer surprised when people tell me that the elemental story is right on for them. It confirms what they might have intuited. It confirms what they thought about themselves. And what I also do is bring in nature. It's like, well, if I have no fire, if a person has no fire or no water, how do we remedy that beside remedying it with people? Can we remedy that with walk by the river, go plant a garden, go stand in the trees, stand in the breeze. So it's like bringing in the elements from inside and outside to be able to tune in more. I think that's the mission that we have in learning about healing and ourselves is, how do I tune in? How do I listen to myself? How do I listen to myself and make the best of everything I've got? And what do I not have? And how do I build that?
Oh my goodness, I love that. How do I listen to myself? I want to add a little asterisk, and how do I trust it? So
How do I trust it? That's big.
yeah.
I don't have an answer for that because it's like, how much is my pattern of my beliefs I'm listening to, or how much is really the deeper wisdom?
Right. Wow.
So how do you trust yourself?
That's a great question. And we need to take a quick commercial break. I'll answer that on the other side because I got to ponder that, Sondra. So we'll both ponder that and we'll be back in just a minute.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com, and tonight we're here with Dr. Sondra Barrett. She's a dear friend of mine. She calls herself a recovering scientist, and I just love wandering through her curiosity. And one of the amazing places that she's gone, I'll say, over the past few years that have been opening up is understanding not only the science of our cells and the science of our being, but also into the sacred and the symbolic and the elemental wisdom that we have. And she asked a question about how do I trust myself? And it's interesting because it brought up a lot of beliefs about how do I trust myself. And I've always wondered, like, is that my belief or somebody else's belief? And then playing off that idea, how do I trust myself? It's very unscientific answers. Sometimes I just know. Sometimes it's almost as if my body firmly grounds itself and just is going yes or no. It's not, I know that's not very scientific, but it's sometimes I just feel it so deeply that if I did anything other than say yes or no, depending on the question, I don't know if it could even come out. I mean, it's just like, no, I'm not doing that, or yes, that's something I need to do. Which is not scientific. I don't know how you would prove that.
Well, it's, science is only one portal of knowing. I mean, there are many ways of knowing. And our culture until fairly recently, and myself until, well, not so recent, if it's not measurable, it's not real. And that's that science belief, although science is beginning to change and look at psychology and look at the ideas of stress. When I was a research scientist, stress and the mind were not part of who we are. And if you can believe it, originally women were not included in medical research because of the hormonal difference and everything else. So there was so much that old science didn't consider. I'm not in new science anymore, but what you're saying is being able to really know, and what's that inner knowing? I'll give an example, which is definitely not science. Reading about the higher self and being able to, and to me, that's one of the seats of intuition. Whatever's the higher self, the higher consciousness. What's her name? Maureen, I can't think of her last name, who wrote Ph.D, Sitting by My Bed. And she talks about, talking to your higher self. And so when I began talking to my higher self, I would say, show me yes and show me no. And I would begin to get tingling in my fingers, for no, and tingling in my head for yes. And I began asking questions. Is this for my higher good? Or is this wise for me to do? And I would get these physical responses, yes or no. And yesterday I was doing a practice, and all of a sudden, I don't remember the question I asked. My whole body started vibrating, and I don't think it was EMF. So there, it's like it's a pendulum away for people to know the inner, that inner wisdom. I was using a pendulum before, so I know yes, which way yes is and which way no is. And what's that picking up?
Well, and similar to that, when people say they do muscle testing, I've had it. And at first, when someone said we're going to muscle test, I kind of went woo-woo. But the more I've learned about it, the more experience I've had with it, and each time it's been correct, I was like, okay, then I know. It's hard to know, but and get confused with this idea of belief and something to back it up, or knowing. Sometimes I get confused just in the words that I choose to use. I find that fascinating. Sometimes I get frustrated with myself. Is that a belief, or do I really know that?
What's the difference?
Sometimes a belief isn't real. A belief isn't true to me. So, I'm okay with beliefs. I just want to make sure that I keep them separate in my mind. What do I know is fact? Maybe provable. I don't know. I'm getting very nitpicky here with my words, but sometimes I like to make sure that I know the difference. Like, well, that's just a long-held belief of mine that seems to work out versus me knowing.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I sometimes look at if a belief is running me, or I get a hit about information. If it's negative, it's not higher wisdom. One of my beliefs.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. But beliefs, are so important in terms of what people want to do about this vaccine and what they think about their own health and illness. If your doc tells you that you've got 6 months to live, do we believe that? Or do we go beyond, well, that's just his opinion or her opinion. And the same thing, it's like the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. My belief had been based on, I never get vaccines. I've never had the flu vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I don't get vaccines in general. So my belief around this vaccine, it was dangerous. I didn't want it. I didn't know what it could do to me. I'm part of a spiritual community, and that began to divide the community. Some people were sending in all this, look how bad the vaccine is, and look how good it is, and the benefits. And, what I came to was our beliefs, our emotions are going to determine what we do. All the science isn't going to influence us. I mean, my daughter is an epidemiologist and has been banging on me, when you get the vaccine, Mom. And I was looking a little bit more at the benefits of the vaccine that's going to prevent a long-term damaging illness, probably, even if it doesn't prevent the illness. And I have a friend who's a physician who's, to me, middle. He's wise. He's wise. Mm-hmm. So I asked him, what do you think? Because he and his partner got COVID right, a year ago. They were early adapters.
Oh, dear. I was too, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. So, well, I'll finish the story, then I want to know how you are. So I just asked him, Tom, what do you think? He said, Sandy, you're 80 years old. Get the vaccine. And I looked at that about not wanting. I'm more afraid of going to the hospital than the vaccine. I'm more afraid of what could happen from basically a full body infection. So, I got my first shot a couple of weeks ago and felt really relieved. I don't know what kind of side effects I could have, long-term dangers, but it was an emotional choice. I think everybody's response around this virus is an emotional one.
Well, I think not just around the virus. I'm thinking about even back when I got my autoimmune diagnosis, emotional choice. I could tell from the physician's body language, she was delivering the news to me, what she's saying, that's probably not good. A lot of the words she was using, I wasn't familiar with. It meant nothing to me except by watching the nonverbal communication. I'm like, this is probably not good. And I think that's where our beliefs play a big part. She went through a whole bunch of stats that were not good. A whole bunch of things like get real, this is your life from now on type of stats. And I have a belief, or people call it a polarity responder, where it's sort of like, I'll show you, or no, you can't tell me what to do kind of thing.
Right. Exactly.
And in a way, I think that helped because I came out of that conversation finding out, okay, at least it has a label now. We know what we're dealing with, yet I'm not going to be that stat. Yeah. And that part was a really strong belief, and where it comes from, I have no idea. But I know that motivated me to seek out different ways of being, different ways of healing, different ways of just coming from, like, that's why I think I adore you so much, coming from that place of curiosity. It's okay to just say, I wonder, this is fascinating. Yeah. And that's what I encourage people on the Autoimmune Hour, whether you have a diagnosis or not, but to keep that open mind of, that's fascinating. I'm curious. I wonder. They're Absolutely. Wonderful. I think they're diminished in our society, which is unfortunate because I think that's where all great breakthroughs come from.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I had the probable diagnosis of liver cancer, I don't know if I talked about that on this show before or not. The first thing I knew I needed to do was not go into my fear and not go into stress, because I knew that would compromise any healing that would be possible. And so I did everything, it's like where we were going to start. I did everything to reduce my stress. And many of them were unconventional. Just like, well, what if I do get that diagnosis, and what if it's possible that I don't? And not going into the fear, not going into the beliefs of my physician, like you. Every test, every scan came back, probably rare liver cancer. And, Elson was one of the people who said to me, rewrite the scan.
Yeah.
Just rewrite it. We don't have to buy into other people's beliefs.
Right. And sometimes that's hard when it's family members. Sometimes I hear voices in my head that I know aren't my voice because I've heard them come out of somebody else's mouth in my little circle of acquaintances and family. I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't know I had accepted that so readily. Let's see about rewriting that, because that certainly doesn't work in my world now.
Right. And I think that's hard. I mean, I saw that with this potential diagnosis, which turned out to not be liver cancer. But I love my daughter, but we didn't talk for months after it was all clear, because, her belief was very different than mine, what was possible. And to this day, I don't know, did I turn it around, or did they just make a bad diagnosis, a potential diagnosis? But, it made me really appreciate when family members want something different than what we want to choose for ourselves, and battling that.
I think COVID has brought that really to the forefront too, Sandra. Yeah. I just really think that I think all of 2020, for a variety of reasons, have brought that to a forefront, but it's caused a lot of stress in families right now, which I know we keep circling around about lessening our stress and the damage that can do to us physically and keep our body from healing.
Yeah, it's really important. And I'm not the best at it, but I know that it's really important for us to have some kind of physical outlet. We've got all this pent up energy. Our bodies are getting tense and constricted. And going out for a walk, even for 5 or 10 minutes, relieves some of that stress. And so we can get into cells. So what's happening at a cellular level when we're stressed? One, we can feel it physically. We can feel the tension in our muscles. Maybe our jaws clenched. I mean, we each have different places where our shoulders are up to our ears. We have different ways that we're holding the tension. But at a cellular level, the fabric of the cell contracts, and that slows down the cells from being able to make energy. So the most productive part of our cells that make energy are the mitochondria. And the mitochondria need air and need oxygen to be able to produce energy. And so when we're contracted, we can't bring in very much air at a cellular level. And to put it in numbers, for every molecule of sugar, because the cells use glucose to make energy, ATP. So for every molecule of glucose, when we're relaxed, the cells can make about 36 molecules of energy, ATP. And when we're contracted and stressed, the cells can only make 2 molecules of ATP.
Well, that's so the difference.
Yeah. So it's like, well, we know physically, are we tired all the time and there's no reason for it, an illness or something like that? Well, then we're stressed. What's the temperature of your hands? So we have this body map. Temperature of your hands, if we're more stressed, our hands get cold because the blood wants to flow to the big muscles to help us to fight or run away. So there's all these little clues of what's going on in the body. And to me, moving or meditation, because how do we bring in more air to our cells and let go of some of the tension?
Now, I don't know if you've done any research on this or not, but I was told by someone, and I would sort of hear at that intuitive level, it makes sense. And I'm not an anti-masker. I have a mask. I wear it a lot. But I was told that if you breathe through your mouth with the mask on, it's more stress creating than if you breathe through your nose. That trying to breathe through your nose is easier on the fight-flight response and the vagal nerve than breathing through your mouth, which I notice when I have the mask on, I do tend to keep my mouth open and breathe through my mouth more than I would without the mask. Does that make physiological sense?
Well, there was some story unrelated to the masks that breathing through your mouth was more stressful. That's what I learned in the old days of studying yoga and things like that. But now I breathe through my nose. But now the reality is when we breathe through our nose and have a long exhale through our mouth, that stimulates the vagal response. That stimulates relaxation. So the long exhale through the mouth, open mouth, is relaxing.
However, the inhale through the mouth is not relaxing, though. So we inhale through our nose.
We inhale through our nose. And Andy Weil has this breathing exercise on YouTube, which I practice and have taught. It's called the 4-7-8 breath.
Okay.
So the 4-7-8 breath is inhale for 4, hold it for 7, and exhale for 8. So it's always a longer exhale. And the exhale is shh. You're making a sound with it.
Oh, so you need to do this in people that know you're going to do that, right? We don't do this walking down the street or something.
Oh, yeah. No. And he recommends only doing 4 at a time.
Oh, okay.
Until you really just start building that muscle up. So there's more and more, if I talk about stress reducing practices, they're stimulating the vagal response. One is humming. I always teach humming. Take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, you're actually exhaling though with your mouth closed. That stimulates the relaxation response. It changes the blood flow. It changes the lymphatic flow. I mean,
doesn't have to be a tune though. When you say humming, it can just be
Yeah, it's just a sound. Yeah, Jonathan Goldman wrote he wrote The Humming Effect, which is a brilliant book because he includes the physiology. I was teaching the humming effect. I was teaching about humming when I worked with women who had chronic fatigue many, many years ago. And chronic fatigue, they lose a sense of self. And there had been work written by a psychologist, Arlen Malberg, who worked with some of his patients who could never use talk therapy. They never made a change. And what he intuited or came up with was having them imagine the sound and then make the sound for 5 to 15 minutes a day. And what he saw, if they did that for a couple of months, the patients he talked about, that they gained their sense of self. They were able to make decisions. They were clearer. So here I'm not a psychologist, and I've inherited this group of women because their leader got chronic fatigue. And so I was giving them this humming. I write about it in The Secrets of Your Cells. That was in the 90s. And that was all I knew about humming until Jonathan came out with The Humming Effect about 2 or 3 years ago. And there he's got the physiology of, well, what happens when we're doing just one tone? It doesn't have to be a song. What happens? And so much amazing research with it. And you asked me if I was teaching about stress. The first online class was on stress. And I was also doing one-on-one with people in the class. And one of the people was a nurse, an energy worker, by the way, who could never turn off her mind. It's just the chatter was there all the time, no matter what practice she knew, nothing turned off that chatter until she did the first couple minutes of humming.
Fascinating. I'm thinking I have a lovely chanting CD that I like to play when I feel stressed. I play that, and it's so lovely. You almost feel it. I feel it in my cells when it's on. It's one of those that just seems to resonate with me, who I am. I've had other people listen to it and not have the same effect. So for me, it really resonates. I'm wondering if I learned to maybe make some of those similar sounds, what might happen. Now you got me curious.
Yeah, well, we're musical instruments. Our bodies are musical instruments. I think the future of medicine is sound.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the cells react to sound? Can you see?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we know our brain reacts to sound and music, but when I was talking to you about the tension of our cells, our cells basically, a lot of people don't know about this part of the cell, the fabric of the cell. So we've got the cell membrane, we've got the nucleus and the cytoplasm, but connecting everything is a fabric or matrix called the cytoskeleton. And it's strings, it's tubes, it vibrates. So whenever there's vibration, so if we think about what's happening during contraction, that's vibration. So at a cellular level, we're vibrating. At an atomic level, we're vibrating. So if we, my simplistic perspective is, well, if we tune up, when you do a hum, you can feel it in your heart. In your chest. So when you tune those cells, the nearby cells start resonating. They are in training together. So you can get your whole body vibrating at a state. So that's shifting who we are. I know that is hard to think of it from a science perspective, but it's definitely a reality. And there's more and more work on the cytoskeleton, what's called the mechanical biology. And the information from this physical mechanical response is way faster than the hormones or any molecular response, way faster.
I find that fascinating. I'm reflecting on a healing type of event that I attended a couple of years ago where the woman used tuning forks on various places that were tense or were causing you a little, like, pain or whatever. And I went with an open mind. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. It really, maybe not completely open. I'm like, oh, whatever. Okay. Seemed harmless enough, right? I was amazed at how fast those various sore points just relaxed. It was this a most unusual thing. Now it's making sense to me why the body would respond the way it did to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Elson used to use tuning forks. I don't know if he still does, but I remember in my old days where he was my healer, he would use tuning forks on different points in my body, and I would see color. If I was going to study something new, I would be studying sound and tuning forks. I have some tuning forks. I used them when I had a tentative diagnosis too.
It's so funny you said see color. I want to circle back around that because I have a friend that instead of hearing sound, she has colors. She will give you, to her, when she talks about sound, it's not a range or a high or low. It's like, oh, that's purple. And I don't see that way. I don't experience sound that way. It's fascinating how each of us experience our bodies completely differently.
Well, it's also, it's a wavelength of energy. It's electromagnetic energy, and the tuning forks have, this is 460. So I don't know what 460 would be in color. I'd have to look at that. But that, whether I was picking up the color frequency, Elsa would just say, yeah, that's right. But
go with it.
Yeah. Jean Achterberg, I don't know if you know who Jean was. She was one of the pioneers in imagery and healing. And most people think with imagery you need to see. And Jean didn't see, she heard. So it's a sensory experience. And we each have our knowing differently. But imagery and healing was a classic book she wrote.
Learning to trust our sensory experiences, I think, is the crux of what we're talking about here. We're down to just the last 5 minutes. When Dr. Sondra and I talk, I just also admire her mind and her willingness to just go with it. I'm always fascinated, as you guys can tell. Anyway, we're just down to the last 5 minutes. I want to make sure, what are some final thoughts, and where can people discover? I haven't even talked about your book, the Secrets of Your Cells, Discovering Your Body's Inner Intelligence, and all of the classes you're teaching online now. So just share with us a couple of final thoughts, and then where we can find out more about you and all your amazing work.
Well, I think one thing we need to know is believe that we can change, believe that we can really heal, and the healing may not be physical. The healing can be emotional or spiritual, and ask those questions in healing, whether you have an illness or afraid of an illness. What do I need to heal right now? And people can find me at sondrabarrett.com, SondraBarrett.com. You can find me on Facebook too, but it's probably easier to find my website because there's more on there.
And what about the classes? Do you have any classes coming up?
I'm deliberating if I'm going. My next class is probably Your Elemental Soul. I taught that a year ago, and it just feels that's what's up. So I was taking this month off and not teaching, I've been teaching online now for years, but especially this past year, it's been nonstop. I'm working on this Oracle deck, Wisdom deck, and I want to finish it this month if I can. So I would guess that Your Elemental Soul is next. There will probably be Secrets of Your Cells book club again. I've done that. This will be the 5th time. So you can sign up to my newsletter and find out what's going on. I don't have it planted yet in my calendar, but...
Well, she's always up to something, guys. Whenever I connect with her, she is always up to something new and just a wealth of knowledge. And I'm curious about the elemental soul. That sounds fascinating. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So everyone, that's Dr. Sondra Barrett. You can find her at Sondra, SondraBarrett.com. And check her out, because not only does she have great books, and as you could tell, a wealth of knowledge, her website has amazing things you can learn all the time, as well as get on her newsletter so you can find out what classes she's teaching next. Thank you so much, Dr. Sondra, for being on the show again. I just love where you allow your curiosity, imagination, and wonder to go. I so appreciate you and sharing new ways of looking at being.
Thank you, Sharon, for giving me this opportunity to chat with you and go wherever.
Well, I think that's important to our understanding of wellness. I know when I first was diagnosed, it was all about the physical, as I mentioned, and then opening my mind and finding out that past traumas play into it, long-held beliefs play into the healing, going even to questioning my spiritual beliefs. I mean, all of that has led me on this amazing healing journey that I never would have guessed from that diagnosis. So open your minds, everyone. Allow it to wonder, and go out there and experience nature a little bit too. That always helps me wonder. Join me next week for another brand new episode. Have a great week, whatever your adventure. And be sure and have adventures, okay? Join me over at understandingautoimmune.com. Enjoy.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life, and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at projectforgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.